Welcome to the Morgan Thomas Show on The Roar. Morgan and his co-host Alan Adams give you their authentic opinions on this week's biggest Clemson sports news. You'll get in-depth game analysis, position grades, recruiting coverage, special guests, and more. Here's your host, Morgan Thomas.
Here we go. You're watching and listening to The Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al, my co-host and good friend, Alan Adams. Welcome to the show, Al.
Man, it's good to be here. It's a little bit different night for us tonight. I'm usually coming home from youth group right about now, but today I'm leaving Bible study a little bit early. And as we all know, God is a huge Clemson fan, so I think he's going to forgive me for that one.
If you're not familiar with the Morgan Thomas Show, it's myself. I'm the host and producer with my co-host, Big Al, Alan Adams. We go live stream on Facebook and on YouTube every Wednesday night at 8:30. Then we also, on Thursday nights at 8 p.m., we go and have our replays up on the Roar, 105.5 FM and 97.5 FM in Spartanburg. Typically, we go through 3 different subjects, and that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about the position grades and give our position by position grades for Clemson. All right, Al, so we're going to start off with the quarterback. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, 17 for 25, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. What kind of grade did you give him coming out of the Florida State game?
I gave him a B+. I thought he looked much more composed in this game. He was very comfortable, in part due to the offensive line, and they kind of resolved some of the issues they had the week before at North Carolina. He didn't have any eye-popping stats, but he just played a little over a half. I remember a bad pass or two. Obviously, he tried to force something and be a hero on the sideline, and it got picked off. But, I'm kind of that guy. I hate to see him just run out of bounds in most instances. I'm kind of the no guts, no glory kind of guy. I do like to see him make a play there. And he had a guy open. He just kind of underthrew him. But still, I gave him a B+. He did a pretty good job there. It's just the stats aren't going to kind of really pop out at you.
I went ahead and gave Trevor Lawrence a B. As you know, I don't do pluses and minuses. I don't like that. That's mixing math in there, and I don't like that. But I like Trevor. I like what he did. He had a good job passing the ball, good job rushing the ball again, and seemed like he made some pretty good decisions throughout the game up until that one interception, which I still feel like is kind of boneheaded there. He's relying too much on his arm strength and his talent. But then again, as you were mentioning, I want him to rely on his arm strength and his talent. I want him to be I don't want him to have to think about, should I not go for it? I want him to take risks and push the envelope on what his abilities can do. As far as the running back, you had Travis Etienne, 17 carries for 127 yards, 7.5 yards per carry. Lynn J. Dixon is another notable one, 10 carries, 49 yards for 4.9 yards per carry. What was your grade for the running back position?
I gave the running backs an A. We talked about it last week. The kind of point that I made was I expect Travis Etienne to have a big day. I think he's been a little frustrated with kind of his lack of plays, his lack of kind of really putting the team on his back. He likes that. He enjoys that. And he had the day I expected. He ran hard. He ran with a purpose, much harder than I have seen him in the past few games. And, he had a bullet of a pass on the second play of a game. He really reared back and threw that one, so I was very impressed with that. I predicted that big game. I was glad to see him back. It's good to have the old ETM back. Lynn J. obviously, provided the good changeup as well as he usually does.
If you haven't checked out some of the offensive plays that I've put up on Twitter, it's at Clemson Morgan. There's one specific where Travis Etienne picks up a block for a touchdown from Lawrence to Ross, and he was a key player in that formation there to block that blitzing linebacker, and something that he kind of got picked on in the North Carolina game. And it's good to see him come back out and have a really solid game in the blocking side of things. He did great running the ball. I think that going back to the offensive coordinator side of things and the play calling, they came out in the pistol, which, I love the pistol because it's more of a running back traditionally behind the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And Elliott came out and said it forces Trevor to just worry about handing the ball off. He doesn't have to worry about reading the defensive end or the edge linebacker or anything like that. He doesn't have to do the run-pass option. He doesn't have to do the read or anything. He just has to give the ball off. Most of those plays where he just had to do that, Travis Etienne did really well. One specifically I have over on the Twitter account. He went for 13 yards and a first down. Great decision there by Elliott to get back into that. Taj Boyd was so good in the pistol. So I want to see more of it. I think it was great. It's kind of like a Chad Morris thing. And I don't know why they haven't been doing it at the beginning. They kind of really relied on that shotgun option kind of formation, or play, but I like to see what they're doing now. So I give Travis Etienne an A because Lynn J. Dixon also had some good running as well. So I like both of them. I think they did really well. As far as the wide receivers, had a bunch of good wide receivers out there. Justin Ross had 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins, Amari Rogers both had 5 catches. What do you give the wide receiver group?
I gave the wide receivers a B+. The quarterbacks kind of really spread the wealth out in this game. Nobody really shined for the most part. I mean, Higgins, Rogers, Ross, and Ngata, they all kind of had, I think, somewhere between 35 and 62 yards apiece, something like that. So nobody had a huge game, 100-plus yards. The ones we're kind of used to seeing from Higgins especially. He's been kind of over that 100 mark all year, it seems like. But, they did a good job of getting open, making a few plays here and there, obviously with the few touchdowns you mentioned before. So overall, B+, not a bad day for the wide receivers.
Jumping over to the tight end core, really J.C. Chalk, a little bit of Price out there. Didn't really see much of them, much activity, especially in the first half. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm going to say, originally I kind of gave them a higher grade than this. I'm going to say a B just because I really didn't see much from them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I did the same thing. Like you said, they had a couple of small receptions, Chalk with the first down catch, and there was another real short one, I think, for a couple yards in there, but they're non-existent in the passing game, as they typically have been. A solid B, I will take that every time from our tight ends this year.
And as far as the offensive line, they got picked on a lot last week. We gave them, I think you gave them a D, and I gave them a C last week. This week, I think they did better. They still had a bunch of unforced penalties, so I can't give them an A in that situation. They had a false start from Simpson, a false start from Cervinka. Ankrum, I noticed, missed a block on a crucial running down to the left side for, I believe it was a 3rd down play, and he missed a block completely. Cade Stewart fell over on a couple of plays I watched. I was kind of disappointed in that. And a lot of times I noticed that on the right-hand side, how we talked about there's an issue on the right-hand side. We couldn't really pinpoint it. It seems to be that there has to be a lot of 2-on-1, 2 Clemson players on 1 defensive end on the right side. For whatever reason, Simpson and Carmen can handle 1-on-1s. But for whatever reason, on the right-hand side, it seems like the more plays I look through, it's 2-on-1s over there. And in that situation, it's taking up a blocker and freeing up a linebacker. And that's why there's a lot more pressure on the running backs to pick those guys up. I wouldn't really give them a C in this situation because I felt like a team that puts up that many rushing yards and passing yards and no sacks. I don't believe he had any sacks. I'm going to give him a B.
Yeah, I did the same thing for a lot of the same reasons. I actually gave him a B+. I think it's kind of one of the games we've been waiting on from these guys while knowing they can still do much better. They did a good job in run support, pass protection. When Etienne has a good day and Trevor Lawrence has a good day and no sacks, I mean, that's obviously a testament to the offensive line, even if there are a few slip-ups and the penalties you mentioned.
And moving over to the defense, and if you're worried for the defense, I'm going to tell you my front 7. The defensive line and linebackers. I'm going to lump them together because I gave them both an A. I think Tyler Davis did really good. I think XT did really good. Dabo's already bragging on XT and how he's way ahead of Isaiah Simmons at his age. The linebackers, Skalski was all over the field tackling literally everyone. Isaiah Simmons leading the way. You even had Kane Patterson, third, fourth stringer out there tackling everybody. Chad Smith with an interception. So I give them both A's, defensive line, linebackers.
Actually, the defensive line, I gave an A-. I thought they did a great job slowing down one of the best backs in the country in Cam Akers, albeit against a bad offensive line for the Seminoles. They just really haven't been able to block anybody, and that trend continues from last year. They had just over 100 yards rushing. A big portion of that was against the backups. So A-, a really solid job. It's just really hard to grade them, A or A+ when you understand the competition they're playing. It's hard to give them that when they're going against a bad offensive line for the Seminoles. Linebackers, I was very impressed with the linebackers this game. Skalski, you said, was all over the place, did a much better job tackling. I don't recall calling out to, my father-in-law, hey, another missed tackle, by Skalski or whoever it might be, or Chad Smith, which is a great thing. I've been kind of harping on that a bit this year. They did a much better job, and they're going to need to continue to do that.
As far as that back secondary with the cornerbacks and the safeties, I didn't see much wrong with the cornerbacks. I don't think Blackman or Alex Hornibrook really could handle what Clemson's defense brought to them. Mm-hmm. But I give the cornerbacks an A. Obviously, big thing, no issues. And Kendrick, man, with the pick six, the exciting pick six, you love to see those, and I want to see more and more of those. The safeties for me, again, you have another guy, Tanner Muse, with an interception, even though he was way off of coverage. And if Alex had have thrown it correctly, it would have probably gone for a touchdown. But he threw 5-10 yards behind him, and Muse just said, "Thank you, sir." So we'll take it, right? But overall, Kayvon Wallace with consistent pressure. You've got.
Yeah, cornerback, I gave it, as a matter of fact, I gave cornerback and safety both A's as well. I thought they did a pretty good job against some talented receivers. Florida State does have talented receivers, especially Terry. Kendrick had that big pick six. Like you said, I called for that pick six in week one. That was my bold prediction for week one. It did not happen, but it was good to finally see him get that opportunity because he's in position more often than not. So I'm hoping we'll get to see more and more of that kind of thing from him. Solid day for the safeties. Tanner Muse, like you said, got that interception. I think that was 3 on the day. Chad Smith, Tanner Muse, and Darion Kendrick got the 3 interceptions for us. Muse got healthy over the bye week, which was a big deal.
And then to wrap it all up with the special teams play, something that was really more controversial than it needed to be was the special teams play. A lot of Gamecock fans love to really pick on Dabo Swinney for coaching. Yep. I don't really get that. I actually was tweeted to, I believe it was Dustin Fry or whoever their kicker was a couple of years ago, the guy that was like 80 pounds soaking wet, that kicker that they had. Yep. And he was talking junk about Dabo and how he's just treating his kicker completely wrong. And I don't believe that at all. I came out and said that, everybody needs to be challenged in some way. And if your son or daughter has never gone through some sort of challenging situation where someone out of love is trying to make them be better or push them to be better or be a better version of themselves, then it shows. It shows to everybody else. It might not show to the parents, but it shows to everybody else around, hey, that person's never really been challenged in their life. They've never really been pushed to be successful. Yeah. So, but overall, BT Potter, he did miss the one, but Sawicki came in and made one, and then punting job was good. They really didn't have to punt very much, but kickoff returns, not really doing much there. I want to see some electrifying kickoff returns or punt returns, just not seeing them. But I'll give them a B. I don't think they did anything too negatively bad or too overly positive.
Yeah, and actually, Elliott Fry's the kicker you're talking about for South Carolina. Dustin Fry was actually a former offensive lineman, I believe.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking Dustin and Roman is the offensive lineman. I get it, yeah. As far as helmet stickers and the $2 bill, helmet stickers we give to the top 2 players from our team, and the $2 bill we give it to the top player from the opposing team. For me, I have Amari Rodgers. I knew you were going to pick someone else, so I picked Amari Rodgers because he had 1 rushing touchdown for 29 yards. Really was more of a pass, but 5 catches tied the team with T. Higgins on the catches, and he's just so consistent right now. When you need him, he catches the ball, he gets you positive yards, and he can break tackles. And I really enjoy that about him. Welcome back, Amari. I'm glad that you're back from injury and you're looking good. On the defensive side of things, DK with the pick 6. I love him. I love pick 6s. I love DK because he reminds me of a Deion Sanders type guy that can play both ways. And Clemson is now tied for 6th in scoring defense. So go Tigers on that.
For offense, I chose Travis Etienne. I talked him up the week before, so obviously I had to kind of go with him after he had just under 130 yards rushing, about 7.5 yards a carry, and of course we've talked about a couple of times the pass he threw to Justin Ross. So he had a great day. Obviously, Travis is going to be my guy on offense. Defense, I went with Kane Patterson. You kind of mentioned him when you were talking about the linebackers in our position grades. I really liked some of the plays that I saw him in on Saturday. He was really aggressive. He was around the ball. He had a sack and a tackle for loss, I believe. I'm really looking forward to seeing him develop because, as we know, it's really difficult for a freshman linebacker to come in and be in Brent Venables' scheme. But he seems to be grasping it pretty well. I'd like to see more and more of him as the year goes on, as obviously he learns the playbook a little better, adds some more bulk, and gets in there. But I really like what I saw from Patterson.
But my $2 bill, let me pull out my $2 bill here, Al. You see it on the screen there. My $2 bill is Hamza Nasiruddin. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I always called him Nasiruddin in the
Nasiruddin
process, but they called him something different on the PA system at the game, so I'm not really sure.
So we'll call him HN for Florida State. He's the only guy that I really felt like did anything that stuck out to me, which was get the interception from Trevor Lawrence, and he kind of stepped out of bounds, got 2 feet in, and then tiptoed to catch it out of bounds. So I got to say, hey, some good footwork there. So you get a $2 bill, sir.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I went with Janarius Robinson. He's a defensive end. He had 6 total tackles, 4 solo, and he forced a fumble. So there wasn't a lot, like you said, as far as the Noles were concerned defensively. Clemson kind of did whatever they wanted, but he was a bright spot for the most part. So he got my $2 bill.
All right, everyone. Well, it's time to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll give you our Week 8 picks against the spread. Remember to check us out on The Morgan Thomas Show, Facebook, YouTube, and The Roar. We'll be right back after this.
Now back to the Morgan Thomas Show on The Roar.
Welcome back to the Morgan Thomas Show. Thank you for hanging on during the break. This is segment number 2, Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al, Alan Adams. Al, let's get into segment number 2, one of our popular segments here, because right now I believe we're both above 60% picks against the spread. Mm-hmm. If you don't know how we do it, we basically do all the ACC games and the top 25 versus top 25 games. And so we'll start you off with ACC games here. The first game out of the gate is Pittsburgh at Syracuse. Now for me, Al, these ACC games are getting a lot more complicated for me because especially, well, this one is on the Atlantic side. I feel like the Atlantic's a little bit easier to pick, but the Coastal Division, I'm basically picking one out of the hat. But let's start off with Pittsburgh at Syracuse. At the time I wrote this down, I have Pittsburgh -3. We know it could change, but I've got Pittsburgh -3. What's your thoughts on the game?
As far as Pittsburgh and Syracuse goes, I want to pick the Orange because in this crazy ACC, they're bound to win one they shouldn't. But I just can't. Pittsburgh's been a little up and down. Had the big win at Duke last week, so I'm looking for him to get another. I'm going to take Pittsburgh minus the 3 points against Syracuse.
And just to tell you our record right now, and this record includes all top 25, not top 25 versus top 25, but all top 25 games that have been played each week, and then all ACC games. Allen's at 110-66, and I'm at 106-70. And our friend over at SB Nation, Jason Priester, really good guy over at ClemsonJunkies.com as well, 113-63. He's leading the way right now, so good job there, Jason. For me, Pittsburgh, when you look at it, they're great at stopping the run, and I think really that's all you really need to do to beat Syracuse. Hold Mo Neal in check, and that's what Clemson did, and that's what Maryland did, and that's what I think Pittsburgh's going to do. Syracuse has a horrible defense, giving up 425 yards per game. And I think that I really feel like that Pittsburgh is going to be able to go to the Carrier Dome and win. It's a toss-up, really. -3, I think they will go in and win this one, so I've got Pittsburgh as well. Next game up on the ACC slate is NC State at Boston College. NC State -3 as of writing this. What you got on that game?
I'm going to go with BC to take the W here and continue the solid streak of covering the spread. When I pick for them, I like to pick BC against the spread. It seems to work out pretty well for me. I'm going to do that as well. I'm going to take Boston College plus 3 points.
Bad pick. They just lost their quarterback, Boston College. So really, they got A.J. Dillon, obviously really great. But NC State is 5th in the country at rushing yards per game, 66.7 yards, better than Clemson. Now, obviously, they hadn't played the same type of teams, but still better than Clemson by almost 40 yards. So NC State's got a pretty stout rushing defense there, plus or -3, -2.5, -1, whatever it'll be. I believe that NC State will beat them by at least a touchdown. Boston College, whenever I've picked them, they've hurt me. I'm not picking them this weekend, so give me NC State to stop the run and win the game. Next one up is Georgia Tech at Miami, kind of one that scares me a little bit. Miami, as of watching this, I think is -18 or giving 18, so it's at home. What you got for this one?
But I look for the Miami Hurricanes to kind of keep their win streak going here and get a big win at home against Georgia Tech, obviously a team that's been struggling for quite a while now. So I'm going to take Miami minus the 18.
Yeah, I think that Miami is coming off a big win against Virginia, of all teams that I don't think anybody in our group picked Virginia to lose that game, 17-9. Perry, their quarterback, is kind of doing pretty well, replacing Jaron Williams after the injury there. But Miami's still trying to figure out what they're doing. Georgia Tech is, man, if Miami's trying to figure out what they're doing, Georgia Tech is like times 1,000 trying to figure out what they're doing. Everybody that's an underclassman for Georgia Tech was brought in for a completely different scheme and coach. And that's just a disaster right now. They can't figure out what they're doing. But I'll tell you, some games, like I think UNC, they scored almost 3 touchdowns or around two and a half or something like that. So, or 22 points, I believe. So Georgia Tech knows how to score in some games, and then they turn around against Temple, has a pretty decent defense, and can only get 2 points. That's why I say Miami's going to win this one, because they have a pretty decent defense as well. Mm-hmm. So even though I don't trust Miami at all, I don't think Georgia Tech's going to win another game if in 2019. If you look at their schedule, they've got pretty much all, I would say, mid to top level coastal teams, and I don't see that. And then they got Georgia at the end of the year, which we know anybody can beat them, but I don't see Georgia Tech winning any games this year for sure. So I'm going with Miami minus 18. Next game is North Carolina at Virginia Tech. This one, I think, is a hard one to pick. Well, this one and the next one is hard too, but North Carolina at Virginia Tech, UNC minus 3, but the ESPN's Football Power Index has the Tar Heels at a 69% winner. I don't know if I see that.
Yeah, I have no reason to pick Virginia Tech in this game. I picked against Virginia Tech all year, and I've loved it because it's worked out for the most part. I think it didn't when they played Miami, something like that. But Virginia Tech has just been really bad, worse than people even expected them to be for sure. I bet against them all year, but I'm taking the hometown Hokies to win this game. Give me Virginia Tech plus the 3 against UNC. I don't know why, but I think it's going to work out for me.
I know why, because you're cheating off of my paper right now. I feel like that they're pretty evenly matched teams. When I picked the Tar Heels, they lost against Appalachian State and Wake Forest. And so I'm not picking the Tar Heels anymore. I'm going to pick Virginia Tech. I feel like being a 3-point underdog at home is a mistake. I think that they're pretty evenly matched teams as far as offense and defense, but as I said before, with other games that I've picked, I like the better rushing defense, and Virginia Tech has a better rushing defense. We know that North Carolina needs to get the rush going in order to open up things for Howell, and I think that Virginia Tech stops that. And so I'm going with Virginia Tech with the points at home on that one. This one, another one I told you was kind of hard for me. Duke at Virginia. Virginia minus 3.5 as of I believe Tuesday night. What you got?
Cavaliers, like I said, they shocked me when they lost to Miami. They did not shock Vegas. Vegas pegged that one, and it just irritates me because, again, we talked about no football reason for that to be the case, and yet somehow Vegas knows. All right, doesn't matter what you think you know, Vegas knows. So give me the Cavaliers to recover after a big home loss to the Canes. I'm going to take UVA minus 3.5.
You know, I picked Virginia against Notre Dame, and they let me down. I picked Virginia against Miami, and they let me down. But I think they're going to rebound here. They have a better rushing defense, which you know that's what I like to look for.
That's right.
They only allow 90 yards per game, and they're going to have home field advantage. I think Duke is a really good team, but has struggled lately. And I think they're both 4-2 right now. But and I think both the quarterbacks are pretty comparable. This game is going to be one of those games fighting for that top spot over in the Coastal Division. I think it's going to be really, really competitive, but give me Virginia at home minus the 3.5 for me. Next up, Florida State, a team that Clemson just faced and blew out at Wake Forest. So they got to travel. As of me writing this, I've got Wake at minus 2.5. What you got?
Look, I haven't bought into the Demon Deacons all year. Obviously, people wanted to talk them up about being undefeated and possibly being undefeated when they, played Clemson near the end of the year. They still only have one loss coming in this game. Obviously a heartbreaker against Louisville last week. That was an offensive shootout. And honestly, there was a bit of a controversial call on the onside kick at the end of the game. I think the call stood as, possession went to Louisville at the end of that game, and had they been called the other way, it would have been flipped to Wake, and Wake would have gone and immediately scored. They were scoring nonstop on each other last game, but I just haven't kind of bought into what they've got going. Their offense has been pretty good. Not sold on their defense. Obviously, they gave up 62 to Louisville, but give me the Seminoles as the loss is going to beat Wake Forest twice. So give me the Seminoles plus 2.5.
I think that Wake Forest can score at will. I know that they didn't beat Louisville, but I know that Florida State can't score at will. I think Wake Forest, again, has the better defense when you compare the two. And I did a little bit of cheating and looked at OddsShark, and OddsShark's picking Wake, so I'm picking Wake. So that's how I went with that one on that one. So, all right, so that's it for our ACC game. On to our top 25 versus top 25 matchups. Not any Southern matchups we have right now. A lot of up north and over on the West Coast. So teams we're not so familiar with unless you stay up late for Pac-12 at night. But number 12, Oregon, at number 25, Washington. Two powerhouse quarterbacks there, just slinging the ball all over the field. Oregon, as of this, is -3. Who do you got?
Look, last week I called Washington overrated, and when we talked about the 5 things that we learned, that was a good segment if you want to go back and check out that video. I continue to believe that. But the Ducks haven't been beating people quite like I expected them to entering the year. I talked about them as a possible playoff team last week as well, and that continues to be true. However, I'm just riding on a hunch with this one. I'm going to take the Huskies with the home atmosphere to cover against the Oregon Ducks here. They may not sneak out the win, but I'm going to take Washington plus the 3.
Well, I don't know if I can take Washington, man. It is very tempting because of how good Easton is doing right now, but I'm going with the better defense, and the better defense on passing and rushing is Oregon. So they have two good offenses, probably going to be a lot of points, but overall I think Oregon is a better defense, and defense will eventually win. Oregon's only allowing 8.7 points per game, which it's ridiculous. So I'm saying defense wins this one. Give me Oregon minus the 3. Next up, number 17, Arizona State at number 13, Utah. Utah is giving 2 touchdowns, minus 14.
Okay, so look, the Sun Devils have overachieved this year for the most part. They look like a really solid team. I love what Utah brings to the table. I've always kind of been a fan of Utah and watched them, kind of as they bust up the real power teams. I like to see that. They've done a really good job of that for several years now. But I'm actually going to take Arizona State to cover here. They've looked really good on offense. I like what they bring to the table, so I'm going to take the Sun Devils to cover plus 14.
Number 16, Michigan at number 7, Penn State. Penn State minus 9. And I think, Alan, if you've watched this show at all, you already know who I'm picking.
Look, the Nittany Lions this year have proven to be a formidable team. They play well at home. The Wolverines talk ends this week, as the night crowd propels Penn State to a big win. Give me Penn State minus the 9. I hope they blow them out by 40.
I'm never picking Michigan this year. I'm not picking them at all this year, and so give me Penn State. That's what I mean by, if you watch this show, I'm not picking Michigan at all. So that was it for our top 25 versus top 25. Alan, I threw in a bonus. I don't know if you saw my notes, but I threw in a little bonus for you. All right. I know Marty's going to enjoy this one, our good friend Marty. Number 9, Florida at South Carolina. So the Gators, who just come off, I thought that LSU-Florida game was pretty doggone good. It was an exciting game. A lot of people beating up the defenses. I think they just had 2 really good offensive line play during that game. I think their defenses are solid. I don't think it was because their defenses are bad, but both quarterbacks seem to have pretty good time in the pocket to make decisions. And, man, it made out for a really fun and exciting game. LSU just barely beat the spread by 1 freaking point, Al. I almost had them there. Almost had another win on the board against you. I think you picked LSU and I picked Florida. So I almost had it. And so I wanted to throw this one in. It looks like, let me look at this again. I'm rubbing my eyes here because I want to make sure I'm right with this. But it looks like that the spread on Monday it was off, but now it's minus 5.5 as of Tuesday on our Yahoo Pick'em here. So I've got minus 5.5. Florida versus South Carolina. What you got on that?
Well, I think I saw the opening line at something like 6.5. It gone down to 5.5. That makes me think that the 2 defensive ends, they were kind of questionable for Florida, that they may not be playing if the line's going down. I'm not really sure. If that's the case, I mean, that's a whole different story. I think Florida can rush the passer. We know that they have a good defense, and they can stop the run as well. Look, I know it didn't look like it against LSU, but LSU it was a really good offensive team. Florida did well also. Trask was really hitting guys with pinpoint accuracy because the LSU defensive backs were all over him. But they were making some good plays. He was making some great throws. So I think they'll have the offense and the defense to match South Carolina. I really think they should win this game. It worries me a little bit if those defensive ends are out, but I'm assuming they have another couple decent players that can just kind of come in and take their place. So I'm going to take Florida minus the 5.5.
Well, I think Florida does have the better defense. And if you watched that game against Georgia, Ryan Helinski was limping around and still in the game and could barely move his knee. Then he iced it, and when they actually ended up winning, he tried to jump up, and it was like he was on a peg leg. His knee was so locked up. Now, Will Muschamp is saying that knee injury, nothing serious, it's just a sprain. But if anything, that Florida defense is going to be hungry to get after him and test that knee out, not to injure him maliciously, but just to test his ability to move around in the pocket and try to get to him for a sack. I think that it's more than nothing serious. I think it's a big deal. He was out there. It looked pretty painful just to watch. South Carolina's coming off a big win. Florida coming off of a tough loss. But Florida's doing way better than we thought they would. And Trask can throw the ball all over the place. Mm-hmm. South Carolina versus Alabama. Alabama was able to throw all over him as well. Didn't even have to run the ball to win that game big. I think that Florida can do the same thing. Florida's kind of got an average running game, just kind of like Alabama does, which is weird to say. But they definitely have a really good passing game, and Trask can throw it all over the field. So I'm going to go with Florida on that game as well. So that's just a little bonus there for you. Coming up after the break, we're going to give you our preview and prediction for the game where Clemson travels to Louisville to play the Cardinals. We'll be back right after this.
Now back to the Morgan Thomas Show on The Roar.
Welcome back to the Morgan Thomas Show with my co-host, Big Al, Alan Adams. If you want to interact with us throughout the week, over on Facebook, Alan Adams, Morgan Thomas, the Morgan Thomas Show on Facebook. Over on YouTube, you can check all of our videos in one condensed place on YouTube, The Morgan Thomas Show. And if you'd like to talk to us on Twitter, at Clemson Morgan, Alan's at Clemson Allen, but Alan never uses Twitter, so forget Alan. But I do use Twitter, so go check it out. I enjoy it. Let's get into our last segment, our final segment of the show, and that is our Clemson versus Louisville preview and prediction. As I said earlier, ESPN's FPI for Clemson at Louisville is Clemson winning 93.4%. Chance to win the game. The game's at 12 o'clock, so you can wake up and eat your breakfast and get ready for the game right after College Game Day and watch Clemson game. They're in Louisville, like I said, over on ABC. Trevor Lawrence right now is 101 and 161 for 1,301 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Mikael Cunningham, their quarterback, has 820 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Louisville is a team that has a balanced attack, 262 yards passing per game, 227 yards rushing per game. Clemson's defense is light years better, though, than what they're used to. Clemson's defense can hold people to 254 yards allowed, from what they're used to, which is 439 yards allowed from their other opponents. So Clemson is way better than most of Louisville's opponents. A lot of people are saying they're worried about Louisville because of their attack on offense, but this is a defense unlike anything they've seen this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. As a matter of fact, they come off, like we talked about earlier, an impressive win against Wake Forest. I say an impressive win, an impressive offensive performance, at least with 62 points being scored. I talked about the questionable call on the onside kick. They're averaging over 37 points a game, but like you said, and I think this is very key, they have not played the defense that they're going to play on Saturday. I think that is a big deal here. They have 3 quarterbacks that kind of split some playing time with, like you said, Mikael Cunningham gets the majority of those snaps. All the quarterbacks I'd consider dual threats. They're able to run as well when plays break down. That poses a big problem for defenses. Not only does Clemson have to prepare for a mobile quarterback, they got to prepare for 3. Okay, that's something you don't usually see. So I think the closest comp game you can get right now to the Clemson game is Notre Dame when they played them at the beginning of the year, and Louisville lost 35-17. Now, considering the low expectations Louisville had coming into this year, that's not a real bad performance, to be honest with you. I'd argue they've improved offensively since then. Maybe it's just the teams they've been playing. I know they haven't played any really good defenses, but you got to really like what you see from them. You talked about the balanced attack. That's another big deal in why they've been able to score so many points. Clemson's had a tough time at Louisville in the past. You look at some of our past games there, and they have come down to the wire, even when we were a more talented team. It's not an easy place to play, so I think you have to take that into account here. However, I think the talent gap is simply too wide to ignore right now. Even though they've got some good things going on at Louisville, with, I guess, in relation to what they expected coming into the year. Venables going to have a great game plan to slow these. Clemson appears to have found, somewhat of an offensive rhythm, after the playbook was opened up a little bit against FSU, and I look for that to continue. I think the gap is just too wide, and the Cardinals won't be able to handle their toughest test of the season, especially since it's a noon game. You don't get that night atmosphere. It's not going to be quite as crazy. I think the Tigers are just going to kind of take it to them this weekend, and I hope I'm right.
You have to give a special shout out to Scott Satterfield, previously at Appalachian State.
Absolutely.
He's got the Cardinals on the right track, man. They were last year 2-10, and this year they're currently 4-2. So big improvement from last year. I picked them against Florida State, and they just couldn't take the lead. And then Alex Hornibrook came in and beat them. I felt like that I was a believer in Louisville a lot more than I definitely was last year. They barely beat Boston College, and that shows you kind of just a horrible defense there, and barely was able to come out with a win. Clemson is 16th in red zone defense. Wake, Boston College, and Florida State, all teams that they've already played this year, were 80th or worse. So, as I said, this Clemson defense is going to be completely different, night and day from what they're used to. It's going to be a big wake-up call for Louisville's high-scoring offense. Louisville on Twitter just recently came out and said, hey, we have one of the best offenses in college football at 6.95 yards per play, which is actually better than Clemson. Clemson's right behind them at 6.87 yards per play. Mm-hmm. But as we were saying, what does that really mean when you're playing defenses that are not in the top 80 of college football? And that's a lot of teams. So that's even outside of the Power 5 conferences really at that point. So you're looking at Louisville. I think I don't see them not scoring. I think it's going to be interesting, but it's also weird to say that because as some people are saying in chat, Clemson doesn't let people score until their third, fourth string gets in there. And then that's when teams start scoring. I'm really interested to see if how many points Louisville can put up. If they can put up a couple points, I kind of give them a little respect points there to see what they can do against that starting defense. Do I think that they can continue to hang with Clemson? Oh, no. I think Louisville is definitely one. If they're going to score any points, it's going to be early and kind of catching us off guard. And then later on in the game, I don't see them scoring much at all. That's one theory for me. The other theory is they get stopped immediately, and it ends up being like every other team Clemson has played so far. They get stopped immediately, 0 in the first quarter, 0 in the second quarter, maybe 7 in the third quarter, maybe 7 in the fourth quarter. That's kind of what Florida State did. I think I could see the same happen for Louisville as well. Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence came into the Florida State game, made the adjustments necessary to dominate that game. 127 yards rushing, which is really what we wanted to see from him consistently every single game. So it's nice to see him back on it. Trevor Lawrence rolling out to the right, throwing across the middle, not only throwing to the sidelines, all things that we wanted to see him adjust on. The offensive play calling, going back to the pistol formation and doing more traditional runs, more things that we wanted to see adjustments made. Scott and Elliott, as I said earlier in the show, are doing all the things necessary, and that Clemson offense is doing all the things necessary. There's nothing for me to think that they won't blow out this Louisville team, even though it's a road game. I think that if you give me Clemson, Louisville, and the odds are right now minus 24.5. Let me double check that real quick and see. It is Clemson, Louisville, minus 24 on Yahoo right now. So if you give, I think Clemson can definitely beat them by more than 3 touchdowns and a field goal. So give me Clemson minus the 24 points.
Yeah, those are some good takes there. It's funny when I come up with my score prediction, not only do I pick against the spread, I always give my score prediction for the end of the game. in every single week, you start thinking about it, and it's like, look, eventually teams are going to sneak up and get a few touchdowns on us, and every week it seems like I give the other teams more credit than I should against a Brent Venables defense, because this defense has really done a good job of holding people to low point totals. I think the only time that a team has gotten to my point total was North Carolina. And, of course, they shocked everybody. Even though they didn't score a ton of points, I don't think I gave them credit but for about 13 or 17 or something like that. But the defense for Louisville is just atrocious. Their pass defense is horrendous. And when you've got the likes of Higgins, Ross, Rogers, and Gata, Lads, and all those guys coming at you, I think it's going to be a very long day and a very fun day for Trevor Lawrence to try to throw around to those guys. I think they're going to be able to get a lot of passing yards. And I think Etienne's going to have a good day as well. Again, I think he is starting to turn that corner. I think he's running hard. I think he's running with a purpose. I think we're going to see a lot more from him as well. As far as this game is concerned, the line has actually moved up. When I looked at it originally, it was Clemson minus 22.5, and I think you said it was minus 24 now. I have a hard time believing that Clemson cannot cover that, even kind of contradicting the stuff I said before about Clemson kind of having a hard time there in Louisville. We've had some close games go down to the wire. Again, I think that was a different time. Most of those were night games. I think both of those were probably night games. I can't really remember. But this is a nooner. They're not going to be quite as amped up. They're not going to be quite as jacked. I think they're going to kind of get caught off guard, not expecting what we're going to throw at them defensively. I am taking Clemson minus the 24 points. My final score prediction is Clemson 59, Louisville 20.
So you're thinking 20. Clemson on average is allowing 12 points per game. I was going to ask you that question. So you think Clemson will be able to hold them or not be able to hold them to their average of 12 points per game?
I really don't, and that's simply because I think we're going to kind of get ahead. Like I said, with 59-20 is my score prediction. So I think we're going to have some backups in relatively early into the third quarter, which is going to lead to a couple of touchdowns. And it's different when we're bringing our backups in against a North Carolina, even though we really didn't against North Carolina, but a poor offensive team. Let's put it that way. When we're bringing them in against somebody like that, a Charlotte or somebody that has trouble even scoring on our backups. This is a little bit different story. Louisville is a little more advanced offensively than that. At least they appear to be. So I believe our defense is going to do a decent job, even our second and third stringers, but I don't think they're going to be able to hold them out of the end zone like they have been. And of course, the home field advantage is obviously going to kind of push them over the edge a little bit there. So I'm going to give them 20 in hopes that they get, 0. but I'm going to give them a little bit more credit than that in this game. So 59-20 is kind of what I'm thinking.
I definitely see Clemson scoring 50 in this game because if you look at it, this is a Clemson offense that almost has 500 yards per game. And then this is a Louisville defense that almost has 450 yards allowed per game. So this is just the perfect storm for Clemson's offense to just keep trucking the way they did against Florida State. People in the chat are saying that they don't believe that Louisville is going to hang with Clemson. They think that they're confident in what Clemson is going to do to continue to be on track on their offense. Mm-hmm. Bob is saying, what's the game temperature? What's the temperature at game time going to be? It's been pretty cool here in the South. I'm not really seeing a weather. Oh, it's saying AccuWeather over on ESPN 75 degrees at the 12 o'clock kick. So pretty cool weather there. But I have to go with Louisville, and I have to go with Clemson on this one. Whoa, about made a big mistake there. But I have to go with Clemson on this one. Just statistically, it looks like they can hang on the offense, but their defense. They're giving up 31 points per game on average, almost 450 yards per game on average. I just can't. I can't hang. I can't. That 4-2 record is nice, but it's going to go to 4-3. I don't see them hanging at all. Bo's saying over on YouTube, thanks for the great show. I appreciate it, Bo. Thanks for the support. Bo's also asking, who do we think is going to win the Coastal? Well, we'll know this Saturday for sure. I think between Duke and Virginia, those are the two teams that we think are going. Really, they're going to be battling for that top spot now. I think once they get past that game, they'll be able to continue on because both teams have kind of gotten through the halfway mark and kind of settled in more. It's really a toss-up for me. I feel like Virginia will be able to beat Duke at home because it's a home game for them. So I'm going to say that Virginia is going to continue on, and Clemson will likely face Virginia against, or Clemson will be against Virginia in the ACC championship. What do you think?
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Obviously, I was a little disappointed when Virginia lost to Miami. I was honestly thinking they were going to push Notre Dame to the wire, and they really did. That was a good game for quite a while there. I can't remember what the final total there was, but Notre Dame, I think, won comfortably at the end of the game. But Virginia's a good team. Duke is actually a little better than I thought they were going to be. I didn't think they were going to be competing like they are. But as you said, home field advantage, I'm going to give the edge to Virginia, and I'm going to roll with them. I picked them at the beginning of the season, so I'm going to stick with that, and I think they're going to face Clemson as well.
We appreciate it. That's the show for this week. We hope you enjoyed watching and listening. If you're listening to us over on the radio, please check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and The Roar. This is the Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al. It's our bedtime, Al. We are out of here. We hope you have a great weekend. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.